from the Goleta urban limit line to the Mexican border is pretty much developed. Would you like to see Orange County on the Gaviota Coast? That could very well happen.
Nature is one of those things that human cannot duplicate.
This is the last significant stretch of relatively undeveloped and relatively unprotected rural coastal land in Southern California.
There's an interesting dimension to the Gaviota Coast, which is that the northern and southern biota of California kind of come together right around the Point Conception region.
It's a fragile ecosystem, and it's a very rare ecosystem. And there isn't another one like it on the earth.
It's incredibly scenic. Very few places where you can drive right along the water and see open space.
These resources are extraordinarily valuable and rare, and if we don't protect them, they will be gone forever.
My name's Tautrim. I live here on the Aurelia Ranch, a ranch that I helped steward with my father and his wife and my family, and make a living doing custom woodworking, as well as anticipating hopefully making a living in the agricultural business. We're gonna go replace a couple trees that didn't make it. Planted a windrow of Monterey cypress trees. They're doing really well. Trees do so much for us. Wind shelter, animal shelter, shade, increases productivity of the surrounding soils. Give it a blessing and say, grow big and strong, tree. Grow big and strong.
You know, in rural areas all across the country, families are losing their farms and ranches to the process of suburbia invading rural areas.
Humanity, society, suburban living starts to work its way into the cracks and starts to make it harder and harder to have a working, viable agricultural landholding on the Gaviota Coast.
You know, we're seeing it all move towards higher net worth, higher value properties, especially in Southern California, which is pushing farmers and pushing agriculture out of viability.
When you get development into rural areas, it increases property values, which seems like a good thing, but that also increases the pressure to develop, and in some areas also results in an increase in property taxes. And the profit margins on family farms and ranches is so small that that increase in property taxes wipes out their profit, and that they wind up having to sell it.
My oldest son, who's 10, he had some experience where he met a knife maker and he was loving this knife maker. And my son said, I'm gonna come back and move to Alaska and become a knife maker. And then he paused and he said, when I'm 55. And the knife maker looked at him and said, when you're 55? And he said, yeah, I'm gonna need to work on the ranch till then. So that was pretty special to hear him say that at 10, you know, the notion that like dad really needs me on the ranch. It seems sad that we'd lose a ranch of 150 years just to pay the man. And then what, you know, nobody can afford to buy it that wants to stay in agriculture. There's no foundation, you know, supporting this ranch or this family or anything. It's month to month.
When agriculture falls, when agriculture no longer pays, when agriculture doesn't make sense anymore, the result is pavement.
Like right now, the pressure's there because look at what's for sale. Everything's for sale.
Santa Barbara Ranch is for sale. Dos Pueblos Ranch is for sale. Las Varas is for sale. Someone's going to buy it.
So you can see this whole eastern part of Gaviota is pretty susceptible to some extreme changes.
Well, with the urban limit line, you're supposed to have a limit on suburban sprawl.
All we have to do is look south to see what could be coming, you know. So how do we protect against that?
My name's Leslie Freeman, and I run a cattle ranch on the Gaviota Coast. When my parents passed away, we had a huge amount of inheritance tax to pay. So I could come up with some of the money with the ag conservation easement from the land trust. With the land trust, we can do whatever we need to do. Obviously, we can sell the ranch if we want, but it made it affordable to keep. It was just, I don't know, I felt it was the right thing to do because I never wanted to see this place developed. That was my way of legislating from the grave.
There is absolutely no one template for what's going to work for everybody. There's no silver bullet here. But if you add economic activity like tourism, like visitation, like teaching and having workshops as ways to diversify the income to be able to address the very real pressures that agricultural landowners have, we'll be better off.
People are amazed, like you can't have tours. You can't have people come and give you tours on the ranch. That's not currently allowed. You can't have weddings. You know, you can't even bale your own hay without getting a permit. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
If somebody wants to come and have an experience on our farm and they want to see what it's like to be in touch with our food, well, that's illegal. You can't do that.
You need to have some additional income activities that you could do that doesn't interfere with their ag operation. What this permit structure will do is reduce the permitting requirements for some items.
And I think it was one of the hallmarks of the GavPac that we could create those new types of streamlined permitting for beginning enterprises to see if they worked.
If you're doing something small scale, it should have less of a permit than if you're industrial scale. And that's a part of the plan that I'm proud of. So hopefully that will see the light of day.
Mr. Villalobos, will you read item 3 into the record, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The following is a hearing on the request that the County Planning Commission consider making recommendations to the Board of Supervisors regarding adoption of the Gaviota Coast Plan.
Mr. Brooks.
Okay, I'm going to move on to page 38 and farm stands. I'm kind of curious, staff, are there any existing farm stands now on the Gaviota Coast?
My question would be, why would we want to do this? We don't have anybody doing this now. We don't anticipate anybody doing it in the future.
I understand their farm stands, but the problem in this county is when somebody says farm stand without an exact definition, tends to be zoning creep. Farm stands become these little stores with a sign that's lit throughout the night. I could go on and on forever, but anyway.
So I'll call on Mr. Gunnar Tautrim first.
I gotta admit, I'm kind of jumping out of my seat sitting there. We want to support this local food economy, and how better to do it than to make it available to people instead of this fear of, oh my God, if there's a farm stand, it's going to be a 7-Eleven. It's not going to be a 7-Eleven. Why? Because the GavPac spent countless hours putting in all these mitigations for the concerns. You want to disincentivize agriculture, then require people to go so far in debt on one specific thing that that's their life. The greatest threat is a misunderstanding of what we're after, because once people realize what we're after, I know people are in support of it. We're in a space where we've hosted agricultural leaders around the world to come and teach workshops and trainings for our local community. People that have this amazing ability, we want to transfer that down to our local agriculturalists. How better to do that than to host workshops, trainings on ag land, invite agriculturalists to come and have that exchange. So we've since stopped doing this because we're waiting for the county to address issues like this.
Ranchers and landowners and farmers are inherently environmentalists on some level. It is in their best interest that the land is productive and healthy. Aurelia Ranch in Gaviota, Gunnar Tautrim and myself and many others have worked for many years on the project out there, slowly and organically growing a system that is going to be resilient over time and will need very little input of money or energy. Everyone wants to do the right thing. We're all on the same page here. We all have the same goal.
I absolutely endorse the folks who are thinking about evolved interactions with the land and ways to make the working landscape viable, and it's going to be really an important part of the tapestry of how the Gaviota Coast meets the future. Absolutely.
Gunnar's creative, and we need more creative young agricultural minds if we're going to keep that on the coastline. The average age of a farmer in this county is probably over 65 years old, and who's going to take over those properties if we don't have another generation? Who's going to make these lands profitable in the era of droughts and climate change? It's the creative folk.
He loves that ranch. His whole family's on the ranch. So he's like, I think, the 5th generation. So yeah, it's a lot of history there. He wouldn't let that go away.
My main motivation for fighting the fight to save this coast and save this ranch is the legacy that we have here. My boys are 7th generation on the same piece of property. We basically want to have a secure next generation that's inspired to become growers of our food. I see opportunity. I really see an amazing opportunity for this coast to be an example of positive change. If we could create a coastline that is thriving, has abundance, has community, then there's no niche to be filled by development. Basically, we need to fill the niche before somebody else fills it for us.